Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here with us today. Look, we're setting the stage for a really profound exploration into what actually happens when our faith gets put to the ultimate test. And I'm not talking about that easy faith we simply declare with our words when everything's going perfectly well. No, we're looking at what happens when our beliefs crash headfirst into unyielding, stubborn adversity. It's going to be a fascinating journey through some incredibly powerful source material, so let's just get right into it.
So what does happen when the situation just refuses to change? It's a deeply human, honestly pretty painful place to be. I mean, we live in a world where we lose our minds waiting 10 seconds for a web page to load, let alone waiting years for a life-changing breakthrough. You've hoped, you've tried, maybe you've prayed, but the answers seem painfully delayed. Your efforts feel totally fruitless, and the burden, it only gets heavier. It's that universal pain of facing an impossible situation where the breakthrough you desperately need feels literally a million miles away. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, When Systems Fail. To really understand this, we're going to examine a historical narrative found in Mark chapter 9 that perfectly captures this exact feeling. The source text describes a desperately hurting father who is dealing with a long-standing, really stubborn problem. His son was afflicted by what the text calls a mute and deaf spirit, and was suffering from these terrible convulsions. So the father did what any of us would do. He sought help. He brought his boy to Jesus' disciples, the recognized system of help at the time. But they couldn't cast it out. They failed him. Man, how relatable is that? It's kind of like taking your completely fried laptop to the so-called genius bar only to be told they have absolutely no idea what's wrong. How often do we take our impossible problems to people, trying human advice, new programs, plans, connections, only to find that the system completely falls short and the burden just refuses to budge?
Now picture this chaotic scene. The disciples have failed. The scribes are arguing with them. The whole crowd is watching this massive, confusing public failure. It's a moment of intense public pressure mixed with private agony. But right in the middle of this noisy, messy impossibility, Jesus comes down from the mountain and steps straight into the confusion. He isn't intimidated by the chaos at all. He sees it, he asks what's happening, and he engages. The text highlights a really beautiful reality here. When Jesus steps into our noisy, impossible messes, the story simply cannot remain the same.
That brings us to Section 2, The Honest Cry. We are shifting focus now to the climax of the story, where the situation gets completely turned around, starting with a pretty profound challenge.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core dynamic of this whole encounter. The father explains the situation and says to Jesus, "If thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us." But Jesus immediately flips the script. He doesn't say, "If I can." He replies, "If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth." See what he did there? Jesus is putting the requirement of faith right back onto the individual, essentially building a bridge straight from doubt to possibility.
The father's immediate reaction is one of the most powerful, emotionally weighty verses in the entire text. Literally, with tears streaming down his face, he cries out, "Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief." Notice, he doesn't puff out his chest, he doesn't pretend to have perfect, unwavering faith. He offers this vulnerable, trembling, incredibly honest cry. This right here, this is the true beating heart of this narrative.
I really want to make sure you catch this because it is so incredibly reassuring. The source material makes it crystal clear. God is looking for honest faith, not fake perfection. He absolutely does not reject sincere faith just because it happens to be surrounded by questions or wrapped in a trembling heart that's still just trying to reach out to him. You don't have to have it all perfectly together to ask for help.
And what happens when that honest, raw faith rises up? The impossible bows. Jesus rebukes the spirit, takes the boy by the hand, and lifts him up. The chains of that impossible situation are completely shattered. The boy is miraculously healed, proving once and for all that sincere, honest faith opens the door to incredible intervention.
Let's move to Section 3. What is faith? We've seen faith in action, but let's pivot and see how this builds a tangible toolkit for you by breaking down what faith actually is.
If you look here, there are three distinct pillars that beautifully map out the core components of biblical faith: the mountain, the anchor, and the clasped hands.
Let's define them real quick. First, faith is substance. As Hebrews 11:1 says, it's the substance of things hoped for, something solid you can actually stand on, like a mountain. Second, it's trust, the anchor. It's the absolute confidence that God will do what he promised, much like Job, who stood in immense pain and still confessed, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." And third, it is strength, the clasped hands.
Because faith isn't just wishing upon a star. It is the sheer endurance required to not give up. The text actually notes that by faith, Sarah received strength. So it's both the solid ground under your feet and the resilient energy for the journey ahead.
Which brings us to Section 4, Nurturing Your Faith. Because here is the reality check. Faith isn't static. It has to be actively built and nurtured. Later in the narrative, Jesus tells his disciples that some impossible battles, this kind, can only be overcome by a deeper level of dependence, specifically through prayer and fasting.
To help us nurture that kind of resilient faith, the text provides a remarkably clear and concise checklist of action items. We need to check our motives, be incredibly persistent, pray with absolute humility, keep believing when things get tough, cry out honestly when we're scared, and always be willing to try again.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how two of these crucial steps are deeply intertwined. On one hand, we must align our requests with God's will. James 4 warns against asking amiss just to consume things on our own lusts. And on the other hand, we're reminded to come humbly. God resists the proud. So we shouldn't approach him with this sense of entitlement, but rather like a child coming to a loving father.
Next up on the checklist is persistence. The text references the story in Luke 11 about the friend at midnight who gets what he needs simply because of his sheer, stubborn persistence, his importunity. The lesson here is absolutely critical. Do not give up too quickly on your impossible situation. Keep at it. Knock again. Pray again. Apply again.
And while you're persisting, you've got to raise your shield of faith. Life is going to shoot arrows at you, arrows of fear, arrows of agonizing delay, and arrows of deep doubt. But the instruction from Hebrews 10 is clear. Hold fast to your profession of faith without wavering, and whatever you do, do not cast away your confidence.
When those arrows of delay strike and God seems to be saying wait or even no, you've got to remember this profound promise from Jeremiah 29:11. His thoughts toward you are of peace and not of evil. The text explains that sometimes a no is actually God protecting you, and sometimes a wait is God preparing you. His underlying plans are always for your good.
As we bring this explainer to its concluding crescendo, we return to the ultimate truth declared in Luke 1:37, "For with God, nothing shall be impossible." Listen, no situation is too far gone. No burden is too heavy. All hope is absolutely not lost, no matter what your current reality looks like right now. So, the crucial point is this: failure is not final. You can rise from broken chains and step through an open door into the light. Proverbs 24 reminds us that a just person can fall 7 times and still rise up again. Whether it's an exam, a missed opportunity, a closed door, you can rise, try again, and finish way stronger than you started.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. You have a choice. Will you let fear, delay, and doubt be louder than the promises we've explored today? Or will you embrace the honest cry of the Father, admit your unbelief, and bring your truly impossible situation to Him right now? The choice is yours. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep believing.
Please like, share, and subscribe to Master Sense by Faraday, and turn on notifications so you don't miss new and upcoming videos. Drop a comment below and tell us what you'd like to see next.